taking Inside Tennessee on the road this week in an election year that promises to be one of the most divisive in recent history. For perspective on managing our differences, we head to the center of the universe for lessons in agreeing to disagree with civility, because the other fella might be right. It was a driving principle for celebrated East Tennessee public servant, the late Howard Baker Jr. We sit down this morning for an interview with the woman in charge of the Public Policy Institute at the University of Tennessee, bearing his name and charged with continuing his lessons and legacy in political civility.
Welcome to Inside Tennessee on the Road. I'm John Becker, along with my colleague Robin Wilhoit. So good to have you here, Robin.
It is so great to be here. So excited for this discussion.
Wow, to be at the Howard Baker School is a real privilege. With us, Dean Marianne Wanamaker. Nice to have you with us.
Thanks for having me.
And what an extraordinary 15 years. Let's roll back the clock for a second. 2008, this was a big event. Vice President Dick Cheney was here for the ribbon cutting. So was Justice Sandra Day O'Connor. What did this center, which is now a school, mean then, and how has that changed over the last 15 years?
Yeah, so when the school opened, it was a center, as you said, and they were really acknowledging, celebrating Howard Baker. He had reached the end of his career, kind of hitting the twilight of his life, and there were so many people who were excited to build a building in honor of him. And then we have, over those 15 years, built a set of programs that have really honored him, and then, of course, in the last year, converted that whole operation into a school to educate students in his legacy.
Yeah, let's dig deeper into that. Dean, what is the mission? What do you want to impart to these students who come to this school and then go in to their respective places?
Yeah, well, I mean, the reason that this whole operation exists is because Howard Baker was such an extraordinary public servant. One of the most famous Tennesseans, one of the most respected Tennesseans. So what we've done is looked back at his career and said, what is it about Howard Baker that our students, today's students, really need to understand and take into their own public service careers, right? And we've distilled that into three things. If you know Howard Baker, these three things will not surprise you. Mm-hmm. Number one is that he had confidence in our institutions, believed that America's democratic institutions were the right ones. The number two thing is he was famous for saying the other fellow might be right. Okay, well, now we'll talk about that. Mm-hmm. And then the number three thing was he was really gifted at generating consensus. And so we're trying to teach our students all three of those things: confidence in our institutions, intellectual humility, and also how do you get a group of people to agree on something? What does consensus look like?
We're going to dive into that, but for our viewers who don't know the kinds of students that are a part of this school, explain who they are and what they're doing in their lives.
Sure. So right now we have a class of master's students. That's our first class. They arrived in fall of 2023. They're here to learn the art and science of public policy and public administration. They'll go on to careers in government or in private industry or nonprofits that interface heavily with government. This coming fall of 24, we'll admit a class of undergraduate students. So freshmen and then internal transfers within the university as sophomores can choose a major in the Baker School. Again, we expect those students by and large to enter public service, but not all of them will. Some of them will remain in the private sector or in nonprofits.
You're tasked with taking in these students and on this mission, providing this opportunity for them. But the Baker School goes even beyond this building, this campus. You're engaging the broader community through a podcast, through lectures open to the public. Talk a little bit more about that broader impact.
Yeah, we have a statewide mission, and even in some ways a nationwide mission around improving our civic health. Okay, and so the way we think about that is, what is it that we want Tennesseans to do when they engage in public issues in their civic locations, when they go to a city council meeting or they go to vote? How do we want them to behave? What do we want them to know? And we talk about that as civic health. So as you said, the podcast is part of that effort, called You Might Be Right, in honor of Senator Baker. Our former governors Haslam and Bredesen are the hosts. And they really try to model that behavior of, as we said, intellectual humility. Could you be right about this? Let's talk it out. Tell me why you think that. And that's the sort of behavior we want Tennesseans and really all Americans to bring to the table.
And they, in their conversation, and Robin had a chance to sit down with both of them recently to talk about it, they tackle some hard issues. Explain that for viewers who haven't heard the podcast.
Yeah, they haven't shied away from anything. So the most recent one we released was about immigration. I'll tell you what's a challenge sometimes is finding guests that we think will exhibit the sort of behavior we're after. So on immigration, they actually decided just to do it themselves. They weren't confident that we could find the right guest.
That's the need for
yes.
It's just like such a hot topic, right? So they finally just said like, all right, let's just do it ourselves where we explain our own positions, where we're coming from, and try to see if the two of us can reach some consensus. So really recommend that episode. It's pretty remarkable to hear them do that in their own voices.
They talk about education as well and history. How can we teach history in, it used to be not anything we talk about. It wasn't controversial. It's now controversial. So I encourage people who haven't heard it to listen to it. You get some really important perspectives from people.
And both of them are fellows with the Institute of American Civics, which is a component of the Baker School. Share a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so it really has been a gift to us from the state legislature. They established the Institute in law last year, and we've been able to pick it up and kind of run with it. The first thing they told us we had to do was to establish a board of fellows. So we needed to look for 12 people who could lead us, guide us, get us connected. So we enthusiastically appointed those two governors, but also a set of people from across the country who are leading us in these issues of, for example, free speech on campus, civic behavior. And so I'm really proud to say that as higher ed has faced these issues around free speech on campus in the last few months, some of the fellows at the Institute that have been part of that national conversation. So that Board of Fellows started us. We just appointed a director a few months back, Josh Dunn, who's now here with us. And this set of programs and courses in the Institute grows every single day. I'm really proud of the work that that group is doing.
We're going to take a quick break on Inside Tennessee, but we're going to be back with more, as you talked about, a prescription for being a productive citizen, and also Robin's mentioned deeper inroads that you've made in the community, including bringing in a very famous author who we'll talk about coming up on Inside Tennessee.